My apologies, folks. My sincere apologies. I hit the wrong little button there on my last video, so I'm starting back up. And we'll wait for people to come back on. We were discussing the 7th Amendment. We already did 1 through 6. We're going to do 7, 8, 9, and 10 here. And while we were starting the 7th Amendment, we started out with suits. And in that, I meant to switch the camera and instead hit finish. So my apologies. This is going to be a 2-part video. So if you're joining this video and missed the first part, there is a first part. We're on the 7th Amendment in regards to your right to armorial bearing. And we see in the 7th Amendment, real quick, I'll flash back. I'm going through and pointing out how all the 1st through 10th Amendment are negating your right to armorial bearing because of the language in them. And in 7th Amendment, we see suits. And if we go back and review yesterday's video on the right to bear arms, you see I was talking about your armorial bearing. And this is your coat of arms. This is the suit that you wear on a regular basis. You don't put your suit on paper unless you draw it correctly. And if that suit is on paper, it better match the suit you're wearing. And hopefully the suit you're wearing is the full armor of God. Okay? This is the inherent distraction of the English language from your true armorial bearing. So we're going to go back to this 7th Amendment. And we see, again, like I said, it starts out in suits. And today we know that a suit is something a man wears. In this case, they're talking about a suit in court. A suit at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20. So if the coat of arms you're wearing exceeds the value in controversy of $20, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the money? Or are we talking about the value of the suit? The value of the armorial bearing, the coat of arms? They've got everybody confused, and I'm going to go back when I get done towards the end of this video, and we're going to go back to that 2nd Amendment and talk a little bit more about that right to bear arms. Because, like I said, they've got everybody backwards. Here it says, excessive bail shall not be required. What is excessive bail? Bail is a bond. A bail is a bond. Anything that binds as a cord, a chain, a rope, a band. Before we go any further, such as a tribal band. A band known as a tribe. A native band. A tribe that has a tribunal. As I spoke of, this is your tribe. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. If you are a true believer in God and His Son Christ, this is your tribe. And I don't care if you get it from the King James Version of the Bible or any other version of the Bible or the Quran or the Torah. They are all essentially speaking the same. You will see this same like wording in the Torah. You will see the same like wording in the Quran. You will see the same like wording in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in all religions. You will see this same like wording. They all operate on the same principle. You are not the God, but as a king, you can act like a God. But in so doing, you are to minister his word for good. If you do not, as a king of a nation of people, as we see in the Constitution, stick to the word of God, then you are convoluting it. You are destroying it. The Constitution, people, in fact, destroys the word of God if you follow it for what it says. Nor excessive fines imposed. What is a fine? I'm fine already. I was created fine. Nor cruel or unusual punishment inflicted. Again, he is my judge, he is my jury, he is my executioner. No one else. Then when we go to the ninth and 10th are rather interesting. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights. Remember we talked about ascertained by law? They are already certain. They do not need to be certified monetarily because they are already certain. They can be ascertained by anybody. Shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The enumeration in regards to your armorial bearing is the number of the beast of the person within the Constitution. The number of the beast in the Constitution of certain rights. In other words, the civil rights ascertained by law in the commercial construct of the United States of America is all still commercial. And they shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The 10th goes on, despite its I'm not going to say invisible, but despite its not proper visible statement, it starts out, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution. Now, when we talk about the powers, we're talking about the powers that are ordained of God. Not delegated are the ones that are ordained of God and then delegated, delegated by man. They are legal legations. They are the taking away of law that is already ascertained and making it legal. You have a right to the powers to the people. Powers reserved to the people. The powers reserved to the people that are not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, is the way that should be written. The powers reserved to the people, not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively. That would be a more correct, more accurate way of stating the 10th Amendment. So we see, people, if you go back and look at my video yesterday in regards to your right to bear arms, they've got it all backwards. When they say your right to bear arms, that's the commercialization of being able to go out and buy guns that are called firearms so you can raise them while waging war. If you're not involved in the war, then don't commercialize it. If you're not involved in the war, then you wear your coat that lets them know that they have no suit that is superior in their courts. When you affirm your armorial bearing, and again, if you go back and watch that video on your right to bear arms and see how all the heraldry and everything is involved, and see how your stamps, it's based on your right to armorial bearing. The flag that the United States flies is based on the armorial bearing. The institutions that they institute is based on the armorial bearing. Every last bit of it, all of the armorial bearing is right there in Romans 13, verse 1. That's your right to armorial bearing in any case. In any case. In suits of common law, in suits of chancery, in suits of commercial courts, in suits of this, in suits of that. You don't need United States stamps. You don't need United States flag. You don't need United States courts. That's not the court. The court is already established. It has already been written. It is already certain. It has already been ascertained. And you need none of that. You need only speak the Word of God. In order to speak the Word of God and correlate it to all this stuff, you need to be able to ascertain in these different things. And so I'll go back through it real quick here, 1 through 10. 1 through 10. The First Amendment, Congress shall make no law. Why? Because it's already ordained. That's your right to armorial bearing. Respecting an establishment of religion And as I said, I don't care whether you go to the Quran, the Torah, the Bible, Buddhism, Hinduism, any religion around the world is going to have like wording. Period. Or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, because those who cannot speak can still impress what they wish to express from their thoughts onto a literal piece of land, which would be the clay that comes from the land, or the pulp from the wood that comes from the land, or any other medium between yourself and God. Period. Or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, not in war, but peaceably. Just because you're at war doesn't mean I'm at war. And just because you're at war doesn't mean you can come into my abode and bring your war with you. I don't give a fuck about your Third Amendment. Period. Second Amendment specifically referring to a right to bear arms. As I said, that is capitalized. Along with being capitalized, they have it backwards. They have arms after bear, instituting the military presence of war rather than the right to armorial bearings to stand in peace. Third Amendment, that breaking of the peace, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house. Why? Because it's a time of peace. They need not to bring their military into peace. And therefore, if your house is in peace, then no soldier shall be allowed with their military manner. But in a manner prescribed by law. God says you're not supposed to go to another man's house in war. How dare you infringe upon him and say you have to give me safety while I'm in war? The hell I do. The hell I do. You want a war with people, you go to war with them all you want. But I stand in peace by the powers ordained of God. He says I'm supposed to operate in peace. I am not to war against my brother. I am to love my neighbor as myself. Period. The Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath. Whose oath? Whose oath? Some judge on a bench that won't show you his oath or tell you the Secretary of State holds his oath? Excuse me, but that oath means not a goddamn thing to me. That oath written on paper that isn't substantiated by the oath given by him and shown by your acceptance of that oath means nothing to me. Unless you can support this oath with the oath in the Bible. wherein God, willing more abundantly, this is Hebrews 6, verse 7, wherein God, willing more abundantly to shew unto the heirs of promise. Shew unto the heirs of promise. This is shew thyself worthy of knowledge. The immutability of his counsel confirmed it by an oath. This is God, wherein God, willing more abundantly to shew unto the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel. Those lawyers saying you have to have counsel to go to them courts, the fuck you do. God confirmed the immutability of his counsel and confirmed it by an oath. This is your armorial bearing under his oath. Not some oath supported by, or not some probable cause supported by oath or affirmation. And particularly describing what was prescribed. It was already scribed right here. And now they want to describe. They're going to take away your right to armorial bearing. They're going to turn you all around and have you facing the opposite direction of person. Place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. It doesn't say people now, does it? The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. So the only thing that the describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized can only be persons, houses, papers, and effects. Excuse me? Excuse me? My armorial bearing to his house says you have no right in his house to take anything of any effects of his house. You have no right to take the stone that I wrote my name in. You have no right to take the paper that I wrote my name in. You have no right to take the person of the name in those papers and writings, no matter what it be. Period. Fifth Amendment. Your armorial bearing, it says, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime. Excuse me? Didn't we just see in the fourth the mention of the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects? And then when we go to the fifth, we're talking about no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime. You see, they're not holding you, yourself, they're holding the person for a capital or otherwise infamous crime. So in the Fifth Amendment entirely, they are going to the person and violating the right to armorial bearing. They got you all turned around backwards and everything. Sixth Amendment. Oh my. Look at that. In all criminal prosecutions. Wait a minute. In the fifth, it says no person shall be held to answer for capital or otherwise infamous crime. So you see, they're extending it to the sixth through criminal prosecutions. After the Fifth Amendment, they continued with person, from starting with the Fourth Amendment talking about people being secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. So let's look what they do in the seventh. The seventh is in suits. So again, now we're not talking about the persons, houses, papers, and effects. We're not talking about the Fifth Amendment criminal prosecution of persons. We're not talking about the Sixth Amendment, the criminal process. Now we're talking about the in-suits, the coats. What are they coating things with? What are they coating the legal delegations that we see in the 10th Amendment? What are they coating them with? They're coating them with color of law. The heraldry of their law. The color of their coat of arms, which is the legal delegations of the United States and the states. At common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20. This is a commercial aspect still. God never talked about $20. He never talked about the right of trial by jury. Trial is preserved by a tribunal of powers that are ordained of God. And they are to be ministers of God to thee for good. Period. And then we see the Eighth Amendment, which is particular because it talks about excessive bail. Excessive bail being on top of the bond that's already there. That is what makes it excessive. So having you believe that there is a possibility of excessive bail and then conferring this word bail as a monetary term through the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th Amendment shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. Again, if they are not ministering the word of God and realizing that God, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, but he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he hath done, and there is no respect of persons. God gives out that vengeance for doing wrong. Excessive bail shall not be required. Then when we go to the 9th, we see the enumeration wrapping all the way back around to that 4th Amendment, or actually the First Amendment here, because they're enumerating them. They're putting a number to them, a number to the person. They cannot enumerate a man. Therefore, the enumeration is only the enumeration of rights of persons in the Constitution. In the Constitution of certain rights that have already been ascertained and certified shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Not the persons, others retained by the people. Then when we go on to the 10th, as I explained, the 10th is not written in accordance to the way it should be to provide that more perfect union, wherein it says the powers, not delegated. Legalities, legislation, Remember, we talked about that color of law. Their coat, their suits is a color of law. The legal system is the undoing of the lawful system by coloring of law. Pure and simple. Wherein God, willing more abundantly to shew unto the heirs of promise. The promise was knowledge, not suits of at least $20 or more, not a commercial system, not bail in excess or punishments or anything like that. His heirs of promise are heirs of knowledge. The immutability of his counsel, his knowledge, not some lawyer that wants to delegate some oath and legal instrumentalities in a suit under color of law. I hope you guys are getting this. I hope you guys are getting this. You do not have to put out any monetary thing. We have proof in, on, and for the record that you do not need to use any monetary thing to send an article twofold under patent, franking privilege of marking and sealing your private communications through a public trust. Through a public trust, not in public trust. A difference. Think about this stuff, people, and remember, you need to get back to your armorial bearing. I strongly suggest people learn about our armorial bearing. Go back to that video I did yesterday, review that, learn about how to draw up your coat of arms, your heraldry, what it entails, what your duties are, how you express your accomplishments, things like that, because that's a key element in doing all of this. You see, this is something that was, this is an article, art by one's hand, an article that was transported through the United States postal system with no cost. Provision of your own stamp, your own armorial bearing, and showing them where their trust originally extends and they recognize it. Period. Very important aspect, people. I hope you're catching on to this. And I don't, just like the Constitution, I'm not going to say you have to do any kind of particular religion. But remember, religion means re-legion. You're already part of a legion. You're already part of an association. You're already part of a tribe. The 12 tribes of Israel are the 12 tribes of man. Period. The 12 tribes that God created, and he put them forth and told them to go forth and build nations of men. This is a nomadic aspect. He didn't say go forth and stop here and build a nation of men so you could commerce. But he said go forth and build nations of men. In that, those nations of men, there are going to be people that will commune in one spot and no longer travel. Now, once that comes about, they will trade within that community. Today, we have communities doing that same thing, like I said, through a postal system that goes from one nation to another nation. Nation states. And it's all very important. Let me go through and read some of these comments. Yeah, good people have to be able to defend themselves, if you want to use that word or term, defend. Because let me again point out to you the term defend. Think about it. Everybody has a right to fend for themselves. Now, D means to take away the ability to fend for yourself. So while the good people have a right to fend for themselves, they should do so with the Word of God. That's where the power comes from. Now, granted, I understand the concept that you're going to have these road pirates with weapons that are going to stand alongside the road, and you're not going to be able to fight them with the Word of God. And yeah, we see them shooting people as they're running away because they have no way to be able to fend for themselves against those people with arms on the roadside. But this is the importance of that Hebrews 6 verse 17, where in the immutability of his counsel. We have to get back to learning his counsel when we're little ones. And we have to get back to our mom and dads being the ones to institute that counsel. Because dependent upon a state and a commercialized church operating under 501c3 that is dependent upon the state in order for them to portray the Word of God, says that they can't portray the Word of God as anything against the act of a state. That 501c3 that these churches that these churches operate under has a specific clause in there that says they can't operate in any manner against that will of the state. So the will of the state to say that they have a right to tax the people, the church can't stand up and iterate those verses in the Bible about how the people are supposed to reject the taxation of the state. Wait a minute here. How can you possibly operate as a true church then? Under the powers that be ordained of God. You can't. That's hypocrisy. Pure and simple. Let's see here. Nah. When it comes to the guns and stuff, that's one of the reasons they're having such a hard time with people in America. They're slowly trying to increase the prison population of people that are committing violent crimes by letting people out due to the corona thing, and then with all these violent protests, they're going to start locking up people that have guns, firearms, weapons. The people that are out there violently enforcing the Word of God, which can't actually be an enforcement of the Word of God. Because if you're enforcing the Word of God, you're doing so in peace and letting Him retribute the vengeance. You're going to use His wise counsel, immutable counsel, and come up with a way to defeat Him without being violent. That's the purpose of truth. That's the purpose of love. That's the purpose of peace. That's why they talk about war all the time, because they want you to think that it's inevitable, that there's a constant state of war. That's their fallacy, not mine. I'm glad that And I've told this many times, back in my trial 4.5 years ago, I was very belligerent. I was violent. I was fingering them. I was cussing them. I was speaking violent words. I was using bad words. And it comes to the point where you realize, wait a minute, you're not helping your own situation if you're hurting yourself. And what I mean by that is when you start acting up in court and those bailiffs start coming at you and start putting you in handcuffs, that's not going to do you any good. I mean, sure, you can still speak the word, but if trying to speak your word is what caused them to come forth and put you in handcuffs, then you didn't speak the words properly. That's on you. I didn't realize that until later on in my reflections. And this is where I stepped it up and started saying, okay, well, I got to start putting this information out to everybody. I realized the error in my ways. And you can still see me today. Even in this video, I've cussed and sworn a couple times. I really don't want to do that, but I get to the point where I feel the need to use it to express it to you guys, or to you folks, you people, my neighbors, my brothers and sisters. But at the same time, I keep it in the forefront, knowing that I've quelled it a lot. I used to be a sailor when it came to words. I would let them sail right off the tip of my tongue. Today, I'm much more conscientious about it. I know their effect on people. I know in yesterday's video, if you go back and watch that video, you'll see I said, fuck the flag several times. I don't care about that flag. I really don't, people. I really don't. When I use that flag, as a solution, to their supposed legal legislation that says I'm supposed to wear a face shield, it's a straight up scoff at them. Okay, here, I'll use your flag as the shield, ever reminding you that this is your flag. But if you want to see my armorial bearing, it's in the image and likeness. Now we can speak privately, right? You want me to wear this in public? I'll be glad to wear that in public. And you ought to be ashamed. You ought to be ashamed wearing somebody else's armorial bearing. Kneeling to somebody else's armorial bearing. Pledging allegiance to somebody else's commercial armorial bearing. Now, take your legislation on that. How's that? And for you people that served in the armed forces, this is in no way meaning to desecrate you. It's meant to show the fallacy of what they are doing and how they are capturing our children through that military. If you want to fight a true war, do so in peace. Show them your superior excellence in peace. Showing them that you can win the war without fighting. Sun Tzu says in The Art of War, to defeat one's opponent without fighting is of supreme excellence. And this is truly where we need to get to, folks. Truly where we need to get to is be able to defeat them without fighting. Correct. They choke people with that. That is what's choking you, people. If you don't comprehend your right to armorial bearing, and I urge anybody that has any question, anybody that has any complaints, concerns, comments, or compliments, or questions of any sort, feel free to get a hold of me. I'm glad to open up a free Zoom meeting with you on one-to-one private basis to discuss things and show you where the research comes from. So if you take offense to anything I've said, I'm still open-minded. Get a hold of me and ask me. Like I said, I'm glad to open up a private Zoom meeting so we can do a face-to-face. And we can sit there and share screens and do the research and show back and forth. A Socratic debate. Not an argument. Not filled with a bunch of lies and bullshit. But a good, honest Socratic debate in peace. That's all we need. So anyway, think about this stuff. And I'm sorry for the folks that got interrupted on the first part of the video. Like I said, I went to switch my camera and I accidentally turned the video off. So the first part and then the second part. Plus yesterday's video on the right to armorial bearings, right to bear arms. I've been doing a lot of videos lately. I've got them all switched over to YouTube already. And if you just go through my page, like I said, there's all kinds of videos, all kinds of information. When I get done here, I'm going to post the links to all my different forums. I do have a new MeWe link, so if you want to meet me over there, I'm not posting much on there. I'm not going to post much but specific material on MeWe. And then in the meantime, remember that's going to include a PayPal link. I would certainly appreciate it if you hit that share button and send me some love through PayPal. But be sure to also share all the information and videos and forum links. This needs to get out. And like I said, if anybody has any problem or any issue with anything I've said, then let's discuss it. I don't care if it's the President of the United States. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's a local district judge that wants to bring me up on charges of desecrating the flag because they saw me stomping on it. Bring it. Bring it. Let's sit down and talk about this. Let's figure out for sure exactly where this comes from. Exactly what all of these 50 stars means. Exactly what the stripes mean. And how they are being used today. Because if they're not being used by in accordance with the powers that are ordained by God, then they're being used against you in a satanic, evil, destructive way. Period. So think about that. And remember, folks, again, I'll post those links. Hit that PayPal button and share some love with me. Share all the information. Share the links. Share the videos. And in the meantime, remember, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless y'all. I love you. Have a great day. Bye.